And I always start by saying, and we are live. Yeah. And a very good evening to everybody who is going to be listening to us today. I'm Nadine Parry, executive and leadership coach and workplace mediator.
I'm Gemma Stowe. Thank you for inviting me to join you all today. And I am a self-promotion expert, and I work with women to raise their visibility.
I'm Nikki Deason. Very nice to be on the call today. And I am a leadership coach and business mentor after having worked for too many years in the charity sector.
Hi, I'm Jenny Ling. I'm a facilitator, and I do quite a lot in terms of leadership development, both in terms of delivering programs and also writing them.
Hi there, I'm Jan Daines. I'm an education consultant, do a bit of inspection, a bit of school improvement, and as I like to say, one or two other bits and pieces. So it's good to be here. Thanks for joining us, Nikki and Gemma. Brilliant.
Okay, yeah. Thanks so much, Nikki and Gemma, for joining us. And I'm just going to say a few words about the why you're here, because you've got in common that you've kind of changed career. So Gemma, you were a probation officer, and Nikki, you were the finance director of a very well-known charity. And at some point in your career, you've changed career and you're now working for yourself. And you've had to deal with visibility, both of you. And I have to declare that Gemma actually has been my coach. And I engaged Gemma to challenge me on visibility. And I have to say, I had one of the best hours in my life in terms of being challenged in a really nice way and also being elevated. So if I'm doing those LinkedIn Live and it took some time for me to do them, I think I have to thank Gemma for doing that. So thank you very much, Gemma. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
that's amazing.
Yes. And Nikki, you're very special because we met when we did our training with ICF and Tracy Sinclair, who was our teacher coach, when we both changed career at the same time, roughly. So that's kind of the why. The both of you are here with us today, and we are going to be talking about visibility. And I guess the first question I want to ask is, what does visibility mean?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. And I think it means different things to different people. But for me, and because I often talk about visibility quite a lot, as you probably know, for me, it's about raising your profile. And so people know who you are and what you stand for. I think for me, visibility is on so many different levels. You can do it in different ways, but it's about being your authentic self and finding what that is, what your thing is really, to be visible, to get across who you are. So that's how I see it anyway.
Yeah, and it was a really good question to focus on thinking coming into this session, because I reflected on the fact that I think when I was head of finance and finance director, I was really good at being visible about some things that were really important to me, in particular being a learning leader. So telling people when I'd done things wrong and learning from that and then growing from that. And what I realize now looking back is that I wasn't so good at being visible about the successes of the team and what the team was actually doing and why the team was really valuable to the organization. And as a result, the team suffered, I think, because there came to a time when we had to save money and we had to cut roles. And I felt there was a feeling of, we don't really know what the finance team does, so I'm sure we can lose a few of them. And suddenly I had my back to the wall trying to explain what my team did and how valuable they were. So this is so important to sort of think about being visible before you're in that situation, and being able to be sort of comfortable and confident about saying what the good things you do, as well as the learnings and the mistakes that you're making.
So was that because you're naturally self-effacing, Nikki, that you chose to become visible? I mean, obviously, I guess it wasn't a kind of a, you probably didn't think that, you didn't realize you're making that choice, but what you've just said that was that you chose to be, the times you were visible, but when you were almost apologizing for things that have happened. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, and that might not be correct. That's a bit, but that's the sort of leaning that I'm thinking. And I think it's because I value learning so much and developing, and that's one of my personal values. So I think that's perhaps what was coming out, or, you know, more than the other aspects.
Yeah, so where I was going with that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that as such, as long as it's balanced, maybe, so that you, Gemma, would you say that that's the, because there's an honesty and an integrity and an authenticity, that's the word used already, behind that. Yeah,
absolutely. I would agree with that, because I think that you're not alone with that, Nikki. There's so many people. I mean, when I work with women and I work with companies, that this is one of the things that comes up, is being able to really showcase your talent and own your expertise and talk about yourself. I mean, so many people tell me I can't talk about myself. It just feels so awkward and uncomfortable. So you're not alone with that at all. But being able to talk about the things that don't go as well is powerful. Not a lot of people can do that either, and they seem to gloss over that and then just present the finished article or whatever and go, ta-da! And nobody sees the struggle or the determination and motivation that you've been through either. So, yeah, it's really interesting.
So how do we do that then, Gemma? I mean, you know, you said at the very beginning, it's about being your authentic self, right? And I think it's easy to say, but actually it's quite hard to do. So how can we do that?
I think the first thing to do really is what I always talk about, is going back to your strengths. I think with social media and everything's just in our face now, and also with remote working, visibility is a lot online, but we see other people doing it and we think we have to do it like that. And I don't think we don't have to. We have to be ourselves, but sometimes we don't always spend enough time figuring out who we are and what our strengths are and focusing on that, and really finding a way that you can be visible in your own way that feels comfortable. It can be fun. So many people say it's awful. I don't want to be out there. I don't want people to see what I'm doing. But actually, it can be quite fun to share. It's not always talking about yourself. There's different levels to self-promotion and visibility. But I think starting with strengths is really important.
And I think as managers, we can sort of celebrate the success of our teams, not necessarily ourselves. And actually, one of my colleagues at Amnesty, he used to send out monthly emails to the whole management team saying what his team had done that month, and you know how, and that was really great, because he was bigging up his team, and you know, it made us all sort of see what we might not have seen otherwise.
Yeah, I love that. And I talk about that a lot, actually. It comes up in some of the training I do, because what I find with working with women is that they're very good at that as well. Talking about the we and the team. And sometimes they miss out the I and what they did as well. And I think it's trying to get that balance. I think, like Jan said, it is getting that balance between talking about what you've done and what you've achieved and what everybody's achieved as a team. It's really important.
Yeah,
it's really interesting, because we're all involved in various ways in terms of developing leaders. And nowhere, I've delivered a number of different leadership programs for different organizations aimed at different levels, and nowhere has there been anything about visibility.
Okay.
And I think it's what you're saying is really interesting, but we're actually talking almost about a maturity, that the people you're talking about are already there in business doing what they're doing. And what I'm thinking of is, how can we go further back? And I'm thinking about actually students, people in schools, students, and then as a leadership program. So I'm sort of muddling all the things up at once, but I think this needs to start way back, doesn't it? It's harder for us because we've been around a long time, and we're used to the culture where visibility is a bit of a challenge for us. But how can we inspire our young leaders coming up to have that sort of confidence to be more visible? Sorry, that was a really long.
There was a question buried in there somewhere.
What's the question at the end? Did you get it?
For me, I think, and I see this, so I've got 2 children myself, and I see ways that they're asked to kind of practice this visibility. So maybe presenting something to the class or whatever that could be, but it always seems to be in the same ways. As a proud introvert myself, my son's very much like me, actually. So when he's asked to do things like that, I really want to encourage him to do it. But sometimes it doesn't feel natural for him. And I just wish there was different ways. So I remember being at a parents' evening and the teacher saying to me, I just wish, he's brilliant, everything's amazing, you know, he's great at maths, but I just wish that he would put his hand up more and answer the question, because I know that he knows the answer. And I thought, well, he knows the answer, but he doesn't want to put his hand up. And it's really interesting. And I find this fascinating. So it's a great point, Jenny, about how we need to go back and look at where we can start this development of the visibility. And interesting that it's not involved in the leadership development too.
Not at all, not at all. And it's making me think that going forward, this is something I need to know more about, because this is a relatively new concept since we've been talking to you. And I think that that's really important, that if we're delivering programs for middle leaders or for senior leaders, then that it needs to be a recognition that this is a concept. Because it wasn't till I read your paper that actually I could put a lot of building blocks from my past into perspective, in that perhaps, you know, we were too visible or we weren't visible enough, but we didn't think about visibility as a concept.
Yeah. And I guess I've attached that term to it, but I guess it covers things like reputation, network, your image, what you stand for. It covers a lot of things that are probably within leadership development anyway. It's maybe just not identified visibility, maybe.
But I think it would be really powerful to have it as identified like that. So I think that going forward, it's certainly, I should get it. I should perhaps look you up and have a chat sometime.
Absolutely.
I think schools are getting, you know, are so much better than they were when all those millions of years ago when we were at school. And it reminds me of a time when my son came home from school about the age of 7, and he was really very good at school. He loved school. He loved all the subjects. He found it all very easy. And I remember him coming home and saying, I've got this homework and it's too hard. I can't do it. And I said, oh, what is it? Let's have a look. And it was, you know, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? Draw some pictures of you doing things that you're good at. And it was really hard. So, and it was great that they were starting at the age of 7, encouraging them to engage with those questions.
And even now I see women, you know, when I say, what are your top 3 strengths? It's like, what are strengths? And it's quite a difficult question to answer if we don't create that time to think about it and keep going back to it as well, and not just doing it as a tick box, but actually being something that's active and part of who you are when you bring it to work, whatever you bring in.
If you don't recognise it, other people won't. Sorry, Nadine.
No, go, Jenny.
If you don't recognise your own strengths, then other people aren't going to, are they? So, you know, I wouldn't be able to say what my 3 strengths are straight off. I'd have to think about it, but why should I have to think about it? I should know, and it should be sort of at the front of my mind instead of the back. Yeah,
and you know, the powerful thing to do is, if you really struggle with that, and I know a lot of people do, is to maybe reach out to colleagues, past colleagues, or people you work with, and ask them what they think your top 3 strengths are. And it can be really inspiring, actually, and quite a shock, actually, quite a shock, can't it? Like, wow, I'm seeing like that.
It's a very good, it's a very good exercise to do, actually, because there is also people's perception. Sometimes you think you've got some strengths, and actually when you ask people, they come up with very different perspectives that are opening your mind to some extent, and that it's elevating I could do that. I've not thought of it. So it's also about how you are being perceived by people. You've done a piece of work, Gemma, on feedback, and how can feedback help you to some extent with your visibility. And I think it's so important that we give feedback with permission to people, so that they're not stuck in also labeling themselves with those 3 strengths, that they can grow and expand and elevate. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. And it's important with coaching as well. I mean, I know Nikki's a coach, I'm a coach. Well, we're all involved in coaching. And that's a great place to do that work, isn't it? To really focus in on what your strengths are, but what things that you don't know about yourself that you should be focusing on and using to your advantage, especially in terms of visibility.
Yeah. And one way that some people find it easier to think about their strengths is to think of something that they have had that's been a success. So, you know, when clients tell me something that's been a success, it's about then saying, so what are the strengths that you used that achieved that success? And it's, you know, so great to watch people sort of thinking, oh well, so and so did this, and that's why I was successful. Well, what did you actually do? It's a hard question sometimes.
Yeah, I think we underplay ourselves so much as well, and it's almost like we take it for granted and become a bit complacent because we've done something for so long that it becomes part of who we are, and we can say, oh, anyone can do that, or you know, why should I get paid for doing that? Because it's come so easy to me, but it's part of who you are and those skills and experience that you bring to the table. And I think we forget that. We just seem to forget that sometimes.
But maybe
Nadine, you're really,
Nadine,
you're really good at recognizing that, because you're very good at I mean, the three of us talk a lot about all sorts of things, and one of the things that comes from Nadine always is that we need to recognize the depths and the breadth of our expertise, in that we might come to the table and do something that's easy. I can't remember what it was we talked about last week, and I said, oh, well, that's easy, I can do that in very quickly. And you pulled me up and said, yes, you can do that very quickly, because it's something you're good at, something you've been doing for a long time, but don't undervalue what it is you do. And that's really resonated with me, because you do take things for granted. If you can do something really easily, you don't necessarily see it as a strength or a skill, because it isn't difficult, and you kind of think that it should be. It's going to be a strength, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Could we, with a slight degree of trepidation, could we explore the sort of male-female aspect of this? Because I don't. So I don't know. You know, bear in mind I don't know. So let's start there. But all the things that you're saying would apply to me. So I don't. You know. So are you focusing on raising the visibility of women because there's a special need for women, or is that just where you feel comfortable to do so?
For me, I guess it's part of the work that I love to do anyway. As a feminist, I'm always about being behind women and all those kind of initiatives and having more women around the decision-making table, all women represented.
Yeah, which is definitely needed. Yeah,
it's definitely needed. But, you know, in decreasing that gender pay gap, which is what I'm really passionate about. So that's why I do focus my work on women. When I did my research, I did include men because I was interested in the difference in genders. And I know there's not just two genders, but, you know, non-binary across the board. And it was really interesting because what came up was that both men and women who've completed and participated in the survey were both feeling uncomfortable. The majority, I think it's about 86%, were both feeling uncomfortable, awkward around self-promotion and wanted to avoid it. The difference, what came through, was that men would do it anyway. Now, I'd be really interested to get your feedback, Jan, and this might not, everyone's different, obviously, you know, when you do quite general and it's specific to the people that get involved, but that was really fascinating to me. And I think I'd love to explore that further when I'm working with more men to see, you know, if it's something that they don't want to do, but they do it anyway because they know that they're going to get results from it. I mean, what's your experience?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that would be fascinating because I think one of the dangers of putting it into a women's bucket is that men go, oh, well, you know, I'm not interested in that. And actually, if I'm honest, that was probably my first reaction when I first. But I mean, this is fascinating. So and I think that's definitely worth exploring from a male perspective as well. So my entirely personal view would be that, I feel uncomfortable about that, but in certain roles, it was clearly part of the role, and so I felt that I wouldn't be able to do the role effectively if I didn't do that. I mean, so I kind of got over it, which I think is what you said. But I think a key thing for me, and I really feel a tension here between self-promotion I'm big on humility. If you ask me what I think the most important aspect of it, Nadine is smiling away. I'll keep mentioning this, but I think humility is the most important aspect of being an effective leader.
Yeah.
And if you define humility as not of thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less, I think that's quite a useful one. I perceive a little, so for me, a bit of a tension within the self-promotion thing. So when I was making myself visible, it's because I needed to, because of the role I was in. I wanted to promote the school and what we did, and the students and the staff, and the way that. So one of the schools I was head of was a special school, residential special school. So we had therapy staff as well as teaching staff. We had nursing staff, and so I promoted all those. It wasn't a self. But I still had to get over something. Does that? I don't know if that's any.
Absolutely makes sense. And I see self-promotion very closely linked to self-advocacy. So feeling able to speak up. So when you're speaking up on other people's behalf too, that I see that all as visibility. Really, you're in a position where you can, a privileged position sometimes, to be able to then advocate for other people.
Definitely.
But and I can see the almost tension between it. And I think sometimes self-promotion gets called a dirty word. And when I start initially working with people around it, who want to work on their career progression and their visibility and raise their profile, they'll say, I don't want to be arrogant, because that's what they associate with, because they see that kind of behavior. And then that impacts on how we feel, because ultimately we care about what people think of us, and we want to fit in and we want to belong. So to do something else that maybe is looked at as arrogant is just totally off-putting. So I think that term as well can be quite off-putting in itself, which is why I use it to cause a little bit of, conversation.
We've got a couple of observations here from people coming in. Natalie, who came on a few weeks ago, was coming in saying, I'm really interested in this topic. I've seen many jobs that I don't necessarily have all the criteria, and people have said it'd be a man who'd go for it. Interesting that men would more commonly do it anyway, and I hope that more women feel they should give things a go because there's nothing to lose.
Love that.
And that's Natalie. And then Anna says, well done, Jan. Think of yourself less rather than thinking less of yourself.
Oh, that's a good quote.
Yeah, that's a very good quote.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That?
Really good.
I can't remember. It's not. I'd like to say that was me who invented that. I think it was Tim Keller. I can't remember where that came from. I think it was Tim Keller.
Do you think there's a nationality thing here as well? And I don't know whether Nadine's got a view on this, being bilingual. But the British people are naturally self-effacing, or we have a reputation for being self-effacing. Whereas you might think an American might actually have quite a different view to self-promotion and seem to be more at ease with this. And I don't know, Nadine, where French people come within that. But I'm wondering, is this particularly a British issue? Or do British people have more of an issue with visibility than other nationalities?
Great question.
I don't think it's just cultural or nationality. I think it's a mixture of culture, nationality, gender, generation. I've been thinking actually about it, and I'm 54. I don't think in the same way as the millennials. We had them a few weeks ago as Generation Z. And what seems to be a barrier for me as a French national living in England for my visibility isn't at all a barrier for my children who are bilingual, but who belongs to Generation Z and millennials. So for me, personally, I think it's more generation than nationalities. I also think that it depends how long you've lived in the country. I've lived in England since 1989. So for me, I am quite English. So I don't see the nationality as the main driver. I see for me, it's generation.
What about personality? There's got to be a massive chunk of personality in there.
And confidence as well. I mean, when Gemma and we had our session, I probably had a massive lack of confidence, which is a complete contradiction because I was a head teacher and you know, you would think, yeah, and as a head teacher, I have no problem in speaking to people and being on stage, it's fine. But talking about you and, you know, your visibility, so forget about the team, just talking about you, that's something else, actually.
It kind of, talk about the team depersonalizes it, doesn't it? Because you can talk in more objectively about what your team has achieved, because it's not seen as bigging yourself up, because it's bigging other people up. So it's that sort of depersonalization and objectivity that perhaps makes that easier.
And you can hide behind the team. It's, you know, it can be quite convenient to hide behind the team.
Well, that's what I did for a long time. You know, I hid behind my own team, really, and I convinced myself I was better behind the scenes, and that's isn't it? And got everyone else to do those other things of visibility. So yeah, I've been there, and I know what it's like, and it's not easy to be able to start doing it. But I think it's finding your own way and not feeling that fake it till you make it kind of thing. I just don't agree with that. You know, you've got to find your own way to do things.
Yeah,
I think it's also about accepting, and this were the words from your white paper, Gemma, that I really loved. That when it comes to progress, visibility counts, because when you're thinking about who to promote, you can't promote somebody for skills that you don't know they've got, or strengths that you don't know they have.
Yeah.
So, and it is quite hard to come to terms with for a lot of people. So it's about trying to see it in that.
Yeah, I think there's that dual responsibility as well. So whereas there's companies and cultures and, you know, managers that need to have the skills to be able to draw that out of people, you know, there's also the individual responsibility of being able to say, you know, own it and go, this is who I am, this is what I can do. And when both work together, well, then that's magic, because everybody knows how awesome everyone else is. And then the best people, the right people, get the promotions.
Yeah. Just picking up on that point that Nikki said, Emma's come in saying self-promotion and recognizing individual exceptional skills can be made more difficult when those talents are not discussed or praised openly, which is exactly what you were saying, Nikki, wasn't it? A role modeling of leadership, encouraging a highlighting and celebration of talents throughout boosts confidence and therefore visibility. And then Sarah is asking, can you tell us more about the benefits that self-promotion can bring?
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to take that?
Yes. Take that. Can I just say that Sarah works for a creative agency called Thursday, and she's got an amazing boss called Simon Harmer, and he came on my podcast. Brilliant creative agency.
Oh, there we go.
Now you can answer the question, Gemma.
The question was benefits of self-promotion.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they're huge. I guess for me, it depends on what you want. And I think everybody should start with figuring out what they really want. And I talk in terms of career progression. And that, you know, it doesn't always mean a pay rise and a promotion. It's not always about that. It's about opportunities and developing yourself. Career progression, development is all those things, isn't it? So it depends on what you want. But I think just to be general, I mean, self-promotion can get you, you can open doors, get different opportunities by being visible. Networking is a huge part of being visible, I think, in self-promotion. Being able to feel comfortable introducing yourself, you know, that's not easy for a lot of people and can put them off networking. So benefits to meeting new people, building relationships with key stakeholders, being able to talk about yourself. And then the results on that are, you know, the opportunities, the new jobs, the new roles, more responsibility, and meeting more people and that connection, I think. Those are the biggest benefits that I see, but there'll be loads more as well.
Jenny, do you want to pick up more questions?
Yes. Sarah's just thanking you for the shout out, first of all. Then there's a LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who that is because there's not a name with it. Do you think there's also too much self-promotion? I find there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and it's about finding that line with individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is. And like I was saying before, that when we see a lot of it, and if it depends how it's done. And, I don't want to pull down people who are visible because they're doing it right. And it's almost reminds me of when my children say, oh, I'm really good at that, or they're kind of showing off to their friends, and I can feel myself wanting to say, oh no, we don't show off. And I think, no, I can't say that. I need to stop, because this is what we're told all the time, that, talking about yourself is arrogant. It depends how you do it. There is a fine line, I agree. And I think it comes back to being authentic and the intention behind the self-promotion. So if it has more of an impact and help others, then brilliant. If it's self-serving to make money and take that off people who've not got it, or whatever the circumstances, then it's different.
I was always quite uncomfortable on LinkedIn putting out a testimonial. For me, I always felt arrogant when I was doing that, because I thought, well, what will people think, first of all? Okay. What am I trying to prove to people because I've got a testimonial? Why am I doing that? Why do I want people to know about the testimonial? And it took some time, actually, for me to come to peace with, it's okay to put testimonial, and ultimately it's what does it do to you, and to the people who are going to be reading it. But I remember having some quite lengthy discussion about what's the point of doing that. Is it at that point that you're arrogant? Because who are you doing that for? Because there's a lot of people putting testimonials on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And what is the point? What is the intention? I mean, if your intention is to share amazing results that somebody else has got, and yes, they've worked with you, brilliant, but that person, you're celebrating them, which is, I tend to do that a lot, because I love shouting out about incredible women and men. But yeah, I think it's about the intention and the purpose behind it. And that's the bit, if you can get really clear on that, then I think that makes a difference how you feel about it.
Yeah,
I think the intention is absolutely crucial. I mean, I wouldn't have used that word because I hadn't thought about it, but it's brilliant that you have, actually. It's almost like knowing where someone's heart is. You can forgive someone for getting something wrong if you know that their heart is in the right place and their intentions were I want to say, I don't want to say honourable, but I can't think. I mean honourable, but also in the right place. So the intention, I think that's a really key point, actually. And actually, that's in a word made me feel a lot more comfortable about the whole idea of self-promotion.
It's really great. I think it's, I see it with women who want to go for the next position or the next job or the next opportunity, and I'm saying you've got to talk about yourself, how you're going to sell yourself. Ultimately, that's what it is. But then let's look at the reasons why. Look at the intention. What's the purpose? Because they want to do more good. They want to get into that position, have a bigger impact in the company, on customers, ultimately, in the world.
The point that Nick's just made is resonating with exactly what I was thinking, and it's something that was very apparent at school as I was teaching, was that, and it's often a boy, actually, so maybe this is a bit more of a male female thing. Often you get in boys arrogance based on ignorance. So they'll come out and say something completely ridiculous, and it's not based on anything at all. And Nick's point is that if the promotion is of a vessel that's empty, then it's kind of a bit ridiculous in a way. And this is something that is very real in schools, and I guess a little bit of a tricky line to navigate, because what we don't want is people who are shouting out about themselves and promoting themselves when actually there isn't really anything there, or there isn't actually very much. It's that low quality, kind of response. I'm not saying that, there's never a point for anybody that they shouldn't celebrate what they do, but did that make sense? What I was getting out there? Yeah.
I think my feeling is that in those situations, it could be because it's not authentic, rather than that because there isn't anything there. So it could be people feeling that they need to say something about themselves, and they're not quite sure what to say, so they just blurt out something.
But
think
it's about confidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because some people, they don't really know. I mean, we're coming back to strengths here, but they don't really know what they can offer and what they can bring to the table. Either because they've not been told by their managers, because many managers, I'm going to say, don't always take the time to praise people and to tell them what they're doing very well. And at the moment, we've got a lot of tired people who are trying to just, it's really difficult at the moment. And I can see it with my client. And when I tell them, about the strengths, and they just have difficulties to see that, it's kind of, and so what? Everybody's doing it. We're all surviving on those Zoom things. So I don't think I've got technology skills or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that there is something done at work that nourish, the talent that you have, that keeps going, so that you want to talk about what you're doing well, and you feel good about it, and it does serve a purpose within the organization. It's not about being arrogant, but it's just about sharing. And thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick Sheriff. Nick is a friend of ours. He should be here, but he isn't. And Nick is in Dubai, actually. So thank you very much, Nick. Keep asking us questions. And Sarah, if you need us to answer any more questions, please do.
And the LinkedIn user is Natalie.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, I wonder if Nick's sort of correcting my clumsy interpretation of what he says, because he's saying does visibility need an audience who will recognise and understand? So, as in, Nick, I mean, I'm intending to be visible, but the audience that I'm being visible with, in front of, I need to be sufficiently explicit about what I'm promoting.
Their terms.
That it's understood and recognised. Yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering whether there's a sector difference here, Nikki. You've a large chunk of what you've done has been in the charitable sector. Do you think there's a difference here in terms of promotion, self-promotion, with regard to, as compared with business?
That's a really good question, Jan, and I honestly don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I do know that there are people in all teams within the charity sector, so in like finance teams or in the frontline teams, who are there for the cause, and that potentially might get in the way of visibility.
Yeah.
I think it actually does, and I can vouch for that, having worked with a lot of housing associations and not-for-profits. And with the people I've worked with there, they've said to me, I don't want to be visible. I just want to do my job because I love my job and this is what I want to do. But then when we unpick that, they want to have a bigger impact. So I'm like, right, well, how are you going to have a bigger impact? You're going to, get to the next level. You want to have that opportunity and you want to run with it. So we need to get you to that place. And to do that, I think visibility is important. To make sure that they can. So it does all tie together, but I totally agree with you, Nikki, that I think it depends on the sector and the values that are attached to individuals and why they do what they do in the first place, and then trying to piece that together.
And I think that ties in a lot as well with the caring professions, doesn't it? And the public sector. I've got a friend who's a social worker and she was a doctor before and went into social work and actually doesn't want to be a manager because actually she really, really enjoys the frontline work. So there's those aspects as well, aren't there?
Yeah, and I think that's it as well. It's not about, when we talk about career progression, it's not always a promotion. It's if you're enjoying your job, amazing. But from that point of view, I would be saying, well, what can you do to help raise visibility for your work? So that people understand it more. I mean, there's so many different levels to this, and you only have to look on Instagram to see doctors now from Generation Z that are talking about all sorts of things on Instagram, which I absolutely love, because an insight into GPs that I probably would never have had before, because I'd go and see them and talk to them for 5 minutes and then I'm out of there. So now it's opening up a new world, and I love it.
So the key point is, whatever job you've got, your impact can be improved. You know, whatever job you've got and whatever your aims and ambitions are, your impact can be improved by visibility.
And intention is right in the middle of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jenny?
Everything that you were talking
can
about.
I'm just sorry, Dan. I'm trying to. There's quite a few comments that have been
I'll shut up and
picking up that I've been trying to get in. It's great because the conversation is so interesting. Sarah's come back and said it's being familiar and comfortable with your strengths. Then I suppose the self-promotion will be authentic. And I think that's really what we've been saying. It's about the intention, about the authenticity. And she also says the empty vessel issue would come with promoting yourself without any truth behind what you're saying. Truth and expertise, I would kind of add on to that. And then Nick is saying, is there a subtlety to the delivery of visible action? Is that just because you're articulate, even convincing at times, doesn't mean you deserve to benefit from it totally? And then he says, I suppose most things are always a team effort.
Well, that's interesting, actually, because when you're a business, we're all business people, right? We are either self-employed or we have a limited company, and I don't have a team. Well, until today, but I didn't have a team. So, Nick, when you say, I suppose most things are always a team effort, I think it depends where you work, really. Because when you're a one person, and Gemma, you are one person in your business, and Nikki, you are one person, and John and Jenny, you are one person. So it's not always a team effort. It's got to come from you, actually.
It is, yes, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, all of us are. I mean, you've just gone through one person.
Yeah.
But we're all seeking to impact and influence others, and develop others, and that's key thing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. But it starts with you. It starts with you as one person.
Yeah.
You need to have a lot of determination and strength and
I'm a self-promotion convert in just a few minutes of conversation.
So I would love to ask Nadine, because Nadine, you clearly went through this process, and it might help other people on the line. So how do you get from being really uncomfortable to being comfortable?
Well, first of all, you do a session with Gemma. Okay. You do a session with Gemma, and she will ask you questions where you'll probably think, what do I have to lose? Ultimately, what do I have to lose? And what's the cost of not doing that, which deeply I want to do, but I am preventing myself from doing it because I think that people are going to think this and that. And then you have a mountain before you know it. And it's kind of, jump, dare, do it. And what's the worst that could happen? And it's exactly what I did when Gemma and I, we had our sessions. I thought, of course she's right, and you just do it. And then you see the benefits straight away, and you think, why have I not done that before? And why do I not know that? I mean, I'm quite experienced, and I've done quite a lot in my career. So why have I not done that? And why am I putting so many barriers in front of me? And sometimes it just takes, you need to be ready for it. That's the thing. You need to be ready. And perhaps at some point in our career, we're not ready. And that's okay. You have to mature. It's going to be the right time, the right place, with the right people, on the right platform. It just depends. So I think my secret of overcoming has been to do the session with Gemma. So everybody around the world, if you want a session with Gemma, Gemma, you're going to be inundated. And then after to reflect and go for it. I mean, you only live once anyway, right? So just go for it.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think so. if people, oh, sorry, Jenny. Go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, just to add on that, I mean, we do look at values and the things that are holding you back and those barriers that Nadine mentioned. But I think a tip really for anyone tuning in who's, at that stage of going, I'm ready, I want to increase my visibility. It's not always to think that you have to jump in at the deep end. And I think there's power in recognizing your strengths and staying within your comfort zone sometimes. Everyone talks about push out your comfort zone. The magic is on the outside of the comfort zone. Yes, I do love that. And I do that myself. But I also do things that feel good and the things that I know I'm good at. And I start there. So I think sometimes that's really valuable as well to think, small steps. I'm just going to do this one thing that I'm really good at. I'm really good at writing, so I'm going to write a blog, or I'm going to write an article. I'm really good at talking, so I'll go on podcasts. So whatever it is, you find your thing. And I think you can just start and get some quick wins, and then confidence grows.
Jenny?
I think in terms of visibility, this takes a lot of beating. We've been doing these for 3 months now, and I think that when we first started, it was very much a leap into the dark because we didn't know who was going to be watching, what they'd be thinking. We still don't know, because although there are hundreds of people watch this, we don't know a lot about who they are. And I think that when Nadine first asked us to come on, I was very hesitant because it's really sticking your head up above the parapet, which is the sort of negative flip side about being visible. And, we chat and we don't profess to be experts. We're just chatting. But nevertheless, we're putting ourselves out there. And there is an expectation with that people will be listening. And I think that we've got loads of positive feedback. So it obviously is working. But I think it took quite a lot of courage for all of us at different levels, for Nadine for coming up with it and for leading and focusing all this, and for Jan and I just to be in the wings and just giving our 10 pennyworth each week. And it's been great, but it's been, in terms of visibility, it's pretty high up there.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to take Nick's question?
Oh, right.
Can I just say that I thought it was really, really great to hear Nadine's personal story there. And I think what chimed with me was when you were saying you sort of talked to yourself and you realized that you were putting up so many barriers. And I think that's really what can help some people. And somebody was talking to me a while ago and was saying, I want to work hard, and then I want people to notice that I've worked hard, and I want them to promote me. I want them to notice me and reward me and promote me. And then they realize that actually that's not the way the world works. So sometimes it is about saying these things out loud and sort of realizing how they sound, isn't it?
Very good.
Yeah. And also sometimes it's about reconciling yourself, because that some people think that you are amazing and perfect and all of that kind of thing, when deeply you know that actually no, you're not. I'm certainly not perfect, and when I speak English, I know I make mistakes. Okay, well, I live with it. So I think it's not a big deal to go live and to have a great conversation. Even if we make mistakes, the world is not going to collapse. It's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, it's how can we help people? How can we make them feel better? How can we empower them? And if it means removing those barriers, to give that to people, I think it's what matters.
It is, and there's the thing that Nikki said there was a fantastic bit of learning, isn't it? That if in going through this you realise something about yourself, you realise that the world isn't there to be on your side. That we're not guaranteed an easy ride. That no one ever guaranteed that for us, but there's a lot for learning there. And I've been listening to what you're saying and wondering. And I think it's where you started, Gemma, really. I don't know that it was so much schools, but certainly businesses. And I was wondering what the landscape is looking like. If you sort of stick your head up above and just sort of get your binoculars out and have a look, is there real interest and understanding for this sort of developmental stuff, or are we still in a trench?
I think from what I can see, and the companies I'm speaking to and working with, they're very keen, on, developing their female talent, and they can see that there's this gap between women holding back and not speaking up about how great they are, and them getting promoted. And I think they see that there's a responsibility on both sides, which I think is amazing. And I think we need that more, and we need everybody, for me, and I'm always talking about women's career progression. I know this is not just about women, but for me, it's not just a women's issue, it's everybody's issue. And I think we need to really embrace that. And I can see companies doing more of that. I have conversations with people. I've had conversations with, really senior guys, and they've told me, I don't think we've got a lot of ambitious women. And I'm like, how do you know? But I can understand it's not heard women talking about their ambitions. There's that. I read this somewhere, and I can see it how it works. But a man going into his new job on the first day and going, I'm going to have that corner office in 12 months. I'm going to have that position. And a woman going into her job on the first day probably would never dream of saying that, that I want to be the boss. And I think, and that's a generalization, but I think this is what we're looking at. And I think it's just about changing the perception of it, and that women can really embrace their expertise. And just on that note, self-promotions on different levels. I think it was Nick who talked about, do you need an audience for visibility? I was thinking about it as we've been talking about everything else. And actually, sometimes for the women I work with, just being able to say no to things or say yes to opportunities is a form of self-promotion, is a form of putting themselves first and getting the confidence from that. So maybe no one else saw that. Maybe there wasn't a big audience, but for them personally, that can be huge. So I think maybe we don't always need an audience. Maybe it's about our own personal development as well, and just having the courage to say yes to things that we really want to do that we're putting off.
Can I bring in a couple more comments? First of all, Emma, Nadine, we're listening with great interest to what you say, not the way you say it. You have a super accent. I've always said
thank you, Emma.
Great. And Natalie has come in and said, I'm at a point where I've been holding back making a website for a hobby of mine. Do you think there will often be negative backlash of self-promotion, and you have to make sure to push forward and believe in what you're doing? Authenticity does bring vulnerability too.
Yeah. And vulnerability is powerful, that's a strength, absolutely a strength. So to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, you will reap the rewards. I think that's the biggest fear, is what if people call me out? What if people say negative things? I think that's the biggest fear that comes up a lot. But you've just got to go for it. That's about them, not you.
But can I just say something here? I've just thought of something, because I think there is a difference between speaking, so verbal communication, and actually written communication, because sometimes you can hide behind written words. You take the time to, and I was doing that before on LinkedIn. I would write very nice LinkedIn post where I knew I would hide behind my written words. Whereas when you are live, as we are doing now, you just cannot hide.
Nowhere to hide.
You're kind of, that is it, So I think there is a difference between the written communication.
Oral and verbal.
Oh, yes, I think so, yeah.
Can I bring Lisa in? Lisa, I don't know how you've got the time to listen to us this week, because you've got a conference on, a STEM conference out in Dubai. So thank you, Lisa, for listening. You say you don't always have to have an audience to start, but when you start using your voice, the audience will come. It's great. Thanks, Lisa, for that.
Love that.
There's a confident approach. That's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So we've got about 6-7 minutes.
Time's flown, goodness.
Yes, it has. What would be your final message, Nikki, Gemma, Jenny, Jan?
Ooh, the pressure of a final message.
Yeah.
For me, mine's no more hiding. So that's what I always talk about. And I think if everyone can maybe just look at where they're at and where they want to be and how they're going to get there, does it involve you, not being a secret anymore and talking about your success and how great you are? I think for me, that's what my final message is. No more hiding. I want to see people flying their own flag.
And I'm going to quote a friend of mine called Kerry Dorman, who has a saying, which is, there's no learning in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the learning zone.
Very good.
So I really appreciate that some people are naturally sort of more comfortable with being visible. And however we do feel, it's about trying to push ourselves a little bit into that learning zone and give ourselves a little challenge. Take one step at a time.
I like that.
And my thing, the thing I wanted to offer is the thing that I've learned, which is about intention. So, you know, I said a little while ago, I sort of declared I was a sort of convert, really, a self-promotion convert, and that change has come about because I really believe that when your intentions are in the right place, then there's actually no apology needed. Actually, quite the opposite. It's about, you know, you just need to get out there and if your intentions are wrong, then get back in the cupboard. Actually.
Jenny, do you want to bring Nick again and Lisa?
Yeah, Nick's just saying the issue about an audience is more about recognition or a willingness to listen, like your example regarding the guy who didn't think he had any ambitious women. Maybe he wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Could well be. And Lisa's just repeating Nikki's phrase, there's no learning in the comfort zone, there's no comfort in the learning zone. I love it. So I think that's a real takeaway from today. My takeaways from today is perhaps about focusing on, well, first of all, identifying the strengths that you've got and focusing on those, and not really spending time worrying about the issue, about the negativities or about the things that you might not be quite so good at. You know, because you've got real strengths. Focus on them.
Yeah. Somebody else.
Emma,
yeah.
Just at the last minute, thank you for organising this brilliant discussion today. Thoroughly enjoyed it and it's given me much to think about.
Great.
Thanks, Emma.
Nice one, Emma.
And I've got my daughter who keeps texting me, which is why you can.
That's the big
I guess what I would like to say is hire a coach to have that conversation, because I think sometimes it's quite difficult to have the conversation with yourself. You know, where do you start with a blank piece of paper? And I think invest in a coach who is an expert like Gemma to ask you the right question, because in an hour everything can change. And your mindset can change and shift completely in an hour. And it's probably easier than if you do the work on your own with that blank piece of paper thinking, where do I go with that? So hire Gemma. There is no more excuse, right?
Dina, you promoting me? Is this the self? All right, okay.
I am. I think you're amazing. I think you're
Make Gemma visible.
That's because her intentions are honourable and well placed.
And authentic.
Feel comfortable with doing so.
Quick last comment. Nick, great conversation, lots of resonance for me, onwards and upwards. And Anna, thank you all. Very interesting topic.
Yeah, thank you, Marta.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you to our guests, Nikki and Gemma. And thank you to my friends, Jan and Jenny, for being here, as always.
Always here.
And I am going to be live on LinkedIn tomorrow morning with 3 amazing people. We're going to be talking about financial leadership. Very different topic, an equally interesting topic. So tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, if you're interested in financial leadership, then join us. In the meantime, everybody, I hope you're going to have a lovely evening, and see you tomorrow.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.